Hello everybody, and thanks for joining me today. So, finishing up the peacock's chest is pretty much done. We're working into where it becomes his wing. This will probably be the last of these big blocks of this color for a while. We'll see. But yeah, we're getting closer, so just kind of deciding where I want to jump in here. Again, I'm working across a fairly large area, so yeah, it is definitely winter weather out there. Hoo-wee. I swear my fingers are still stinging from being outside and shoveling the walkway there. I did have gloves on. In fact, I wear those pop-top mittens where the top part opens back so you can use your fingers for more dexterity, and I wear gloves inside them, so yeah. When I was shoveling, I had 2 sets of them on because I had the pop-tops closed, but my fingers are still feeling it, I swear. Yeah, it's minus 35 Celsius with the wind chill, and you definitely feel it. Oh boy. And it's gloomy and overcast, so yeah, I apologize if the light is a little different looking than usual. That's why. I don't have as much natural light today, so the lamps are on. And hopefully that gives us a decent enough light that you can see how things are coming along. Oh, I swear the worst is when you're shoveling snow and you pick it up to throw it, into your snow pile or whatever, and the wind picks up and it blows it right back in your face. Like, yeah, that is no fun. Yeah, I think we got about 3 or 4 inches of snow in the last 24 hours. But like I said, we do need it. Or we're gonna have drought the next spring, summer. So yeah, definitely a day you want to hibernate though. Ooh. Go. So yeah, my neck is feeling much better today. I haven't needed any painkillers or muscle rub or anything like that, so yay. Still waiting for my treatments, but yeah, thankfully I'm not going to be like in agony until then. Oh. Yeah, fortunately our insurance covers most of it. I pay about $15 a session, 15, so that's not bad. Yeah, it covers like 90% of it or something like that, so. So yeah, I think I will have enough of this color. I was a little concerned because, yeah, when I was down to 3 skeins of this left, I was over 4,500 stitches left, and I have personally found I get about 1,500 stitches per, so 3 would have been like, yeah, not enough. But because, like I said, I guess because it's all in big blocks and not scattered across this piece, I'm getting more efficient thread, so I might be getting more like 1,600 or even 1,700 or something per. So yeah, I think I will have enough. Woohoo! Yeah, I don't know. They have floss usage charts, but I find I always use a bit more than they say, and I think they're counting on like if it's all in one big block versus how most patterns are, which there is some confetti, right? And so you lose some thread with having to stop and start more often than if it was being stitched in one place. But yeah, again, like just a handful of colors here, like 3 or 4. There's one of my hairs again. Ugh. Okay, so I'm going to add another thread of this bright blue. Yeah, perfect, because I still have, because I can see here, I've got just over 3,100, and I still have about 1/3 of one of my skeins left. It means I have 2 full ones still, so that should be more than enough, thankfully. So woo! So I didn't go out and buy more yet because I wanted to check that I would actually be short before I bothered investing in more, because yeah, I don't think I have any other pieces planned that use this color. It's only in this piece here. Yeah, I did use this color in an earlier piece. In fact, the one in my avatar, the Northern Lights one, it was called Make-A-Wish Painting by Artisy. Yeah, and it had some very bright, vibrant colors in the Northern Lights, obviously. Oh, my goodness. Oh. Yeah, it was really icy drive out there too. Oof. Fortunately, most people were being pretty sensible, but there's always that one driver who thinks they can drive as if there's no ice or snow out there. Yeah, I saw someone almost get rear-ended a couple days ago. I was in the left turn lane, and there was the lanes next to me, and fortunately there were 2, because somebody came barreling up and then realized, uh-oh, I can't stop in time, and they managed to pull into the next lane to avoid hitting them. But yeah, it was a pretty close thing. But if there hadn't been a second lane, yeah, they would have been hooped. So yeah, I do not want to get rear-ended again. I've been rear-ended twice, and I do not want it anymore. And both times were not my fault. One was I was stopping at a crosswalk to let a pedestrian go by, and the person behind me wasn't paying attention, and they weren't expecting me to stop because they weren't watching for pedestrians, and they were too close, slid on the ice, bang. And then the last one was, yeah, same thing. It was on ice, and I think they were trying to zip out ahead of somebody, and they didn't consider the fact that there was a car in front of them. They were trying to cut someone off, I think. And yeah, they didn't consider the fact that I'm sitting right there. There's a car there. And yeah, they hit me. So thankfully, my car was not written off, and I didn't suffer any permanent damage. Yeah, I had to go to the chiropractor for a few treatments, but yeah, I was worried it was going to mess up my neck because I have these chronic issues with it, but it wasn't bad. What was worse was my hip bones, because my foot was on the brake. So when they hit me, yeah, there was more pressure on the one foot than the other. And yeah, it pushed all my hip bones out of alignment. Which, yeah, I was not expecting, but Yeah, I could sure tell you seatbelts do hold you back, because when they hit me, I felt like my body went bent into this backward C, right? Like my middle kind of came out more than my shoulders because the shoulder belt was holding me in place. And yeah. Oh. Yeah, it's wild. I remember when we were kids, we had old car. I think it was like a 78, or might have been an 80, but it was older. And yeah, I remember the back only had lap belts, and I remember saying, like, why don't we have shoulder belts too? Like, we're gonna smack our faces into the back of the seats in front of us. Like, does it not care about that? Yeah, because now it's standard, right? Everybody gets a shoulder belt, but yeah, back then they didn't. And oh, it was terrible, because I remember they were these, like, nowadays they have it that if you pull it slowly, it releases. If it gets pulled quickly, then of course it locks, right? So that in the case of an accident, it will hold you back. But these ones didn't. They were like, I don't know, they were like a ratchet. So you would put it on, and then like it would slowly get smaller and smaller. And so it sucked, because like if you're on a bumpy road and you went over a pothole, it would close up like another notch. And so like by the end of the car ride, you were like, right? Because it was like, it was pulling you in. Yeah. So when you went over really big bumps, it was like, yeah, can't breathe. And then I said, like, it's not really that much safer, because if you were on really long car rides, a lot of times you ended up having to unbuckle so that you could pull it all the way out and buckle it back in again, so that you weren't being, you weren't being suffocated or whatever by it. So it's like, well, that's not safer, right? Oh, yeah, things have changed. I remember, I don't think that the front passenger even had a shoulder belt in that old car. I think they might have had just a lap belt. I mean, I guess the idea was that the driver has the steering wheel, but yeah, I just remember thinking, like, okay, smack your face into the dash. That's not exactly going to be good for you. Oh. Yeah, and then now we have, right, airbag, curtain airbags, yeah. All right, I think I can get another stitch or two out of this, so I will just park it right there. Yeah, I have a whole bunch here, but I may just, like I said, cut this off here for now, fill it in again later, we'll see. Although I think the colors kind of slope this way, and I may follow them as I was doing up further. Yeah, the blue kind of makes these couple of V shapes as it goes into the white on his wings, and I've been kind of just following that color and not sticking to my diagonal. Yeah, I remember though, that old car we had, no power steering, no AC, no power windows. And when my mom got a new car that had power steering for about a month, she kept making us sick, because she was so used to having to, you got to turn the wheel around like 4 full revolutions to make a corner, rather than just, right, like a half a turn. And so, yeah, it took a while to get used to. Yeah, saying like, I wonder if kids are confused as to why we call it roll down a window, because yeah, you used to have to roll the crank, right? Turn the crank. Now it's just a button, but yeah. And I remember us forgetting that you couldn't do up your windows when the car was off, because we were so used to the old hand crank, right? That my dad would have to remind us, okay, roll up the windows, before we get into the driveway. Because yeah, otherwise you can't. Yeah, I think my husband's, one of his newer vehicle that he had a while back, actually had a feature that you could roll up the window for about 20 seconds after you had switched off the ignition. Yeah. In case you forgot, so you didn't have to start the car again, right? So, but Yeah, fancy. Yeah, actually I have a Honda Element, and the very back windows don't actually roll. They're the kind that just sort of pop open about an inch. Yeah. And one time my kiddo, he opened it when it was like winter, and I don't know why. He said he wanted his stuffed animal, wanted fresh air. Goober, right? But anyway, and then it froze open. I was like, oh, come on, right? I was like, that's why it was getting cold in there, little turkey. It was like one summer, I had a fan going in the living room because we didn't have air conditioning at the time, and he had it set up to blow over just his stuffed animals. And I'm like, dude, you know, the fan is there for the people. He's all mad. I said, your stuffed animals are not allowed to hog the fan. Like, they're technically not alive. They don't even have, you know, nerve endings. They're not hot. We are. But yeah, I tease him like he bought himself a brand new stuffed Yoshi with his own money, and he sent me a picture. He said, look, brand new Yoshi. And I said, oh, you know, you better open up that plastic bag. He can't breathe. He's like, oh, but there's a small hole in the top of the bag. It'll be fine, you know. Yeah, I said, this is the kind of text conversations we have when we're not rickrolling each other. Yeah, I wonder if they'll plow our street this year. Yeah, it's kind of funny because, like, I have friends and stuff who live in BC, and not in the upper frozen parts, but in the lower mainland or the island. And yeah, like when there's, you know, an inch of snow, they're like, why aren't the plows out? And I'm like, wow, we get our snow cleared like once a year, maybe. Really only if enough snow fell that if it all melts at once, it would overwhelm the storm drain. Otherwise, they don't. And then my brother-in-law's like, yeah, but we have hills. I'm like, yeah, that's true. You know, fair point. Because, yeah, I'm on the prairie, so we really don't. There's a few hills, but they're definitely much smaller than they have. Yeah, there's one that I avoid when there's snow, though, because, man, I was heading to a four-way stop, and it was so slippery. I gave myself plenty of room to stop, but when I started braking, it actually started sliding over into the curb because it was slanted that way. And I was just like, well, I guess it's either slide into the intersection or slide into the curb. So I guess I'm sliding into the curb, you know, and yeah, kind of hit it like, felt like a bumper car. But thankfully there was no car parked there. It was just the curb. And so I didn't damage my car. But yeah, it's like, okay, I am avoiding this this direction from now on because yeah, when it gets icy, that is one treacherous area. Honestly though, I hate that four-way stop because it's not just a four-way stop, it also has left turn lanes. In one area they actually changed it to 3 lanes, so it's got a straight lane, a right turn lane, and a left turn lane. Well, the problem is nobody knows whose turn it is, right? Because people arrive at different times, and because there's more than one car going in 2 of the directions, it is a big nightmare. And I really wish they would just put a traffic light there. They really ought to. But yeah. Oh, I had one guy, he blew right through it. If I hadn't been watching, I would have been T-boned. Like, I stopped at the four-way, and then I was about to pull forward, and I see this guy just barreling up to the intersection. I'm like, he's not even going to slow down, is he? So I waited a few more seconds just to see, and yeah, he didn't. He blew right past me, and I honked him, and he turned and stared at me with this complete shock that there was a car there. It's like, dude, did you not see the big red stop signs? Like, did you not see that there's 2 roads intersecting, which means you should be paying attention as to what the controls are for that area? Like, you don't just assume you've got the right of way. Boy. Yeah. I mean, if he'd hit me at that speed, he would have written off my car for sure. Probably injured the heck out of me because he would have hit my side of the car. But it's just like, yeah. And he had a trailer and everything too. So there's no way he would have stopped if I'd pulled out in time with that much inertia. But yeah. Oh. Oh, I thought that was a fuzzy end, but actually, no, that's a thread that is attached. I think actually I'm going to, yeah, rearrange some threads here, and I'll probably, yeah, unthread a bunch of them for now. So I'm not currently working in that area. It's just easier at this point to unthread and rethread than when I need it, because otherwise it's going to tangle. And I find that I can thread a needle pretty fast these days. I've had a lot of practice. Okay, so pay attention to where I am. So 190 is right there. Okay, because I'm working down to row 200 on this pass here. Okay, so I can see this area is sloping this way for a whole bunch of the colors, so I think I am just going to follow it for a bit. Yeah, because I find it's a big pain sort of to switch back and forth. So there's a little bit of doing stuff out of order and closing in, but yeah, not a lot. And it's going to go a little bit quicker this way, so I'm going to do that for a bit. Yeah, I was saying about my parents' old car, they actually had it converted to propane, and yeah, that car lasted forever. It was completely rusting apart, but the engine still ran well. My dad ended up selling it to a wrecker for $500 at the end, but yeah. But yeah, with them, that was a problem because not every gas station carries propane, and there were sometimes we were low on it. My mom's like, "Look for the tower, kids." Yeah. But yeah, I remember it was so rusted one time. We were at a gas station, and there was another car sort of pulled up to our bumper, so there really wasn't much room to kind of squeeze between. So I was going to walk across by just walking across the bumper. I was like, 7 or 8 at the time. I wasn't that old, but needed to use the bathroom at the gas station. And anyway, I put my foot on the bumper and I just started to put my weight on it, and like this whole shower of rust comes down, and like I feel the bumper sort of move a little bit. I was like, okay, yeah, I'm not going to do that, because if I try to walk across the bumper, it's going to come right off the car. That's how horribly rusty it was. Ugh. Yeah, and then we got a different car. It wasn't new, it was new to us, but it was a used car. But I remember it was awful. If you made, I think it was a left turn too hard, the car stalled. Ugh. Yeah, I think it might have been a right turn, but it was one of the turns that on the way home, that was a really sharp turn. And I remember like 9 times out of 10, the ruddy thing would stall on the way home. Oh, yeah, it was a piece of junk. I don't think we had that one for very long before my dad got rid of it. Yeah. Yeah, in Canada, they are phasing out gas vehicles. So by 2030, they will no longer be allowed to sell gas vehicles. In fact, I don't think they'll be allowed to sell hybrids either. I think it's going to be electric only. It's supposed to be zero emission vehicles only. Like, you'll still be able to drive the old vehicles, but you won't be able to buy new ones anymore. So, yeah. Part of their plan to try to be more eco-friendly and sustainable. Yeah, the only thing is they said that this will give time because they're going to need to upgrade the power grid, because as it currently is, if everybody had a electric vehicle, it would not be able to sustain charging them all overnight. So yeah. But yeah, for quite a while they had rebates in certain provinces that if you got an electric vehicle, you got a rebate for getting the charging station installed. Yeah, it was like $1,500 or something like that. Yeah. Yeah, they've been doing that kind of thing for a while. They've had, like, if you get more energy efficient windows, in some cases you could get a rebate on your taxes for it. Ours didn't qualify, but yeah, a lot of people did. But we did upgrade to better energy efficient windows, which is nice because, yeah, our old ones were just single pane, which, I mean, who does that? Especially in a place where it regularly gets to -30 or colder in the winter, right? So we would end up with, like, sometimes 2 inches of ice in the corner of the window. Yeah, it was awful. And then, of course, it melts, and yeah, so you'd have to put towels and you have to change them a week. So we call them the window diapers. Oh, because yeah, sometimes I'd be sitting there and I'd suddenly hear this like water trickling sound. And I was like, did I leave a tap on? And then, but it's coming from the living room, and it was like, oh, it was because, yeah, a bunch of water had ice and melted, collected on the windowsill, and finally, once it had filled up so much you couldn't hold it anymore, yeah, the whole mess trickled onto the floor. So yeah, when we replaced it, we got triple paned windows because it was like an extra 5% versus the double pane. So yeah, we kind of said at that point, if you're investing that much, because yeah, it's not cheap, you might as well sort of go up the extra 5%. And now we haven't had a hint of moisture. We had the coldest temperature yet since we had them. It was -53 with the wind chill, and there wasn't a drop of moisture on the inside of those windows, nothing. So yeah, they definitely lived up to their hype, that was for sure. Yeah, the only problem is when you do that, you have to be careful because we ended up with what they called attic rain, which is when it gets so cold it freezes all the moisture that would normally, say, freeze on your windows, instead freezes up in your attic, and then it of course melts when it gets warmer, and it all trickles down. And we thought at first the windows were leaking, but it wasn't. It was just, yeah, that. So the next summer my husband had to install some better ventilation into our attic. So he had to seal up the weather stripping better, the vapor barrier better, and then install some fans and motors and things. So we actually have one rigged up that you can just, when it's when we're going from a cold snap to it suddenly warming up, you turn it on so that way it it vents all the moisture outside, and it doesn't end up running down the inside of your attic, down your walls, and causing water damage problems, because yeah, you don't want to deal with that. One of my friends, they finally discovered in their attic that, yeah, the vapor barrier only went halfway up, and which is useless because of course then the water just collects on the upper part and then it runs down actually like under the vapor barrier, and oh yeah, it's gonna be a nightmare to fix it. Like, they're gonna have to rip out a lot of stuff and replace it because it's gonna rot, and they need to replace their roof, but they need to replace sort of the stuff that's, yeah, sort of just under the roof first. Otherwise, if you put a new roof on top, you're just trapping the problem inside, right? And yeah, so yeah, they said fortunately their insurance is going to pay for a lot of it, but Yeah, it's not going to be fun, that is for sure. Yeah, when my husband was up dealing with the stuff in our attic, poor guy, he backed up into a nail and he had to go get a tetanus booster. Because, yeah, he said, I'm not sure when I last got one. And I'm like, he's had one earlier than I have, because I don't think I've had one since high school, because I've never been exposed since. And I actually went into the pharmacy to ask. They said you needed a doctor's prescription to get it. So, yeah. But I know my husband had had it since, because he had had injuries while he was working in his garage, and they were worried he might be exposed, so they gave him one just in case. And yeah, they usually say 10 years, but they said, yeah, since we're not sure, and you know it's been at least 5 years, let's give you another. So, yeah. Yeah, it's generally not as humid here as it was where I grew up, which was in BC on Vancouver Island, and then later the lower mainland. But you still have to have problems. Yeah, you still have to worry about moisture in your house. It can cause issues. Okay. Right, so 200 is right here. So that is where things will be cut off. Oops, thought I was in mark, not search mode. Yeah, and then my friend who has to get that work all done on their house, they're looking into what kind of roof to get, because, yeah, there's different ones. Our neighbors across the street have an aluminum roof, I believe, and that means the snow actually slides right off it. Yeah. Which is kind of nice, but at the same time, it'll slide right off and like pile in front of their front door so they can't get out of it. Yeah, I remember when we were first married, we were living in military housing, and I think that house had an aluminum roof, and we don't normally get snow there very often, but we had one year that it was, yeah, we had like a blizzard, and so we had several inches of snow on the roof, and then it all slid off at once, and I remember like just hearing this roaring sound. I was like, what the heck was that? Like all through the house. And then, yeah, I looked out the windows and there's like, 2-foot snow drift in front of it. It's like, oh, okay. Because, yeah, it was just the weirdest sound. It was wild, though. My mom worked in this old building, government job. And it hadn't been built to withstand much snow. And they said that the big support beams were not basically anchored into the ground. They were just sort of sitting on top of like these metal plates. And so they discovered if they had more than like 4 inches of snow, they had to evacuate the building because they could actually slide out and the whole building could collapse. Like, just wild. I can't believe that, passed code. I mean, yeah, you don't normally have snow there. You get it maybe once every few years, and if you do, it's usually an inch or two before it turns into rain. But I mean, still, that just seems like a really lousy design. Then, who knows? I mean, how many buildings still have asbestos in them, right? Yeah, we found out after we moved out of the military housing, we got a letter saying that there had been asbestos in the ceiling. I'm like, well, that's great, I mean, my husband said that it was contained and stuff, so we're probably okay. But it was like, yeah, kind of something I wish I'd known before we decided to move in there. But it was kind of no contest, because an apartment at the time, a 1-bedroom apartment, was about $550. And then the military housing was like a little rancher, so it was like a little tiny 3-bedroom house. But I mean, still, it's its own, self-contained place, and it was like $300 a month because we got a housing allowance for him being in the military. So it was like, you kind of can't compare, right? Nothing like having your own structure, so you don't have to worry about, you know, neighbors downstairs complaining that you're walking around too loud. Although actually we weren't bad, but the person who lived below us was very hard of hearing, and so they just turned their TV up like super loud. And we had one time, it was like, you know, 1 a.m, and the TV was just blaring and we couldn't sleep. We finally started jumping up and down on the floor until they turned it down. Ooh. Actually, that was the same neighbor. We were worried. My husband was in the underground parking, and he says, "Oh, I found somebody left their purse here on their car," you know. And so this was late at night, so the apartment office was closed at the time, and so we looked in and found their wallet, so we knew which unit they were in, and we were banging on the door, but like, again, hard of hearing, so she couldn't hear us. And we're going, you know, are we gonna have to like call emergency services, because like there was medication in there, and we were worried, like, right, what if it was a, you know, medication they needed to, you know, keep from having a seizure or something, right? Like, it could be serious. But thankfully, just as we were about to give up and call the emergency services, yeah, she opened the door, and then, yeah, she was so thankful. She tried to give us money, but we're just like, oh, you know, no, like, we just wanted to make sure you got your purse back. And like later on, the apartment manager, he came and he thanked us personally for returning it. But I mean, I said, well, of course, you know, there wasn't any question of us not returning it. That's not the kind of people we are. I'm just glad we were the ones that found it, right? And not some unscrupulous person who would just take the cash and leave it. Man, it was funny though. We had the person next to us, they had this big station wagon, right? This big boat of a car. And they would park in their space, but they would park like drifting into our space and stuff. And it was really irritating because like my husband would have to pull right over so that we could fit still in our space. And that meant I had to climb over like the console to get out, because my door would be like so close to the car next to us, I couldn't open it. And, you know, he left a couple notes saying, like, you know, can you please park in your space properly? You know, we need our space. My wife can't get out of the car easily because you're not parking correctly. Like, and he wasn't rude about it, but they didn't care. They just parked however. So one day we beat them home. We got there and we saw, oh, the space is empty. My husband was like, great, perfect. And so he parks exactly on the line till there's like, you know, 3 millimeters of paint still showing. Technically still on the line, but not in his space, but right as close as you can get to it without actually being in his space. And I mean, he even like backed up and pulled in a few times to get it exactly right. And yeah, after that, they never parked drifting over into our space again. I said, my husband is like the most patient man like that she ever met, but yeah, if you're gonna be an inconsiderate jerk, he will be the pettiest person you ever met too. So it's like, yeah, that was like 20 years ago, but I still remember it. Yeah, I remember my sister-in-law, she still lived in town, but she didn't drive, and we don't have a public transit in this city. There used to be Greyhound buses sort of between the cities, but nothing in town, and you know, cabs get expensive. So she would ask me to give her rides to work, and I was fine with it because we're, you know, 5 minutes away. It's no big deal. And, but unfortunately, the space that was selected, that was allocated to her apartment, there was a telephone pole that was sort of right at the end of it. And like, technically you could fit the car in there, but it was really tough to maneuver. So I hated that. Yeah. I remember a lot of times I would either park on the street and, you know, text her, okay, we're here. Or I would park in the visitor space. It was empty because I was only going to be there for, you know, the minute it took for her to come downstairs and get in the car. Yeah. My husband can maneuver around it no problem, but yeah, I got a little nervous that I was going to hit it. So I didn't want to be having to do the, you know, 27-point turn to try to maneuver around in there. Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of nice because in exchange, this was when kiddo was still younger. And so if she was off work when he was off school and I had to work, she would watch him. So I would drop him off at her place, and yeah, they would hang out together. And then I would, like, I was allowed to bring him to work, but obviously, yeah, it's more boring for him. She had a bunny and guinea pigs, so yeah, he liked hanging out there a lot more. She had videos of him playing with the bunny and stuff. Yeah. And the guinea pigs always liked the bunny too. They always liked to follow her around. It was really cute. Because our guinea pig, she was pretty lazy. But yeah, if she was around the bunny, she'd happily trot around after her. Do I have a knot back here? No, okay. It almost felt like I did. I just wanted to make sure before I kept stitching. Okay, so that one I just did. This one... So yeah, I did go a bit out of order, but nah, that's how I felt like stitching today, so I did. These bigger blocks, I tend to be a little less strict with making it a diagonal shape. Because yeah, like I said, then I have to change colors more often. It slows me down, so I find this easier. Yeah, that sister-in-law, though, she's now moved far away. She's in another country with her husband and baby, the one I'm knitting a blanket for. Yeah, which I am halfway done now. Yeah, I find knitting takes a little less brain power for me than cross stitching. So yeah, when I feel like my brain is melting, I pull out the knitting and I add a few rows. Usually I would work on my Ocarina of Time piece, which is just the background right now, but yeah, I want to get the knitting project done, so. Plus, like I said, with knitting, I don't have to really look at what my hands are doing, so I can watch figure skating. Because yeah, it's going to be the nationals coming up soon, before the World Championships, which is in March. Yeah, the World Championships came to Calgary one year. I kind of wanted to go, but then I saw how expensive tickets were. It was like, yeah, never mind. Mm. So yeah, I just watched it on TV, so. Oh yeah, we got a lot of stitches done already. Almost 200. That is nice. I feel like that first pin stitch wasn't very secure, so I'm just gonna do a third one just to be sure. Yeah, first one disappeared so much I think it might not have really caught anything. Won't be secure if it hasn't. Okay, so now switch to the next color. Yeah, you can see these two navies are very close. One's got a bit sort of more blue and the other one's sort of more closer to black, but they are very, very similar. Yeah, I had in my Northern Lights piece, it was like all 939 and like 823, and yeah, up close they really didn't look that different. I mean, it added some texture, but it was like you really couldn't see where it was different, so it was really frustrating sometimes. I stitched this whole page and it looked like it was basically all one color. Yeah, I kind of don't like when this solid black square and this solid black circle are right next to each other. It can be harder to see. That's one nice thing about Pattern Keeper. Yeah, doing the highlighting for you, it does make it easier to see. Still a little frustrating, but yeah, the nice thing is once you highlight and select it, it's outlined in purple, and the other color is not, so that does make it a lot easier. When I was working from paper, yeah, really had to pay close attention in those spots. Keep from messing it up. probably tell it's colder because the furnace doesn't shut off very often. Yeah. When it was that -50, I said the furnace would click off and like 10 seconds later click on again because, yeah, it was that cold. Yeah, definitely doing my exercise inside. I think the worst, though, is that when there's this much of a temperature difference between inside and outside, the house makes a lot of popping and snapping sounds. Yeah, it wakes me up at night. Okay. Yeah, even with earplugs in, I can hear it. Wow. Yeah, we passed 87,000, I think, last session, and now we're closing in on 88,000. Yeah. Well, like I say, these big blocks, they fly by very quickly. Oh, I think I grabbed the wrong color here. Yeah, I just realized that's... Yeah, this is 823, and I should have grabbed 939. Whoops. Oh, come on. You're gonna be... Oh, you're gonna be a little brat, aren't you? Oh, what a mess. Okay. Let's see if we could get this to unsnarl. Oh, jeez, what a mess. No. Bunch of that actually shredded. Ugh. I hate when that happens. Oh yeah, this strand is toast. Yeah. Oh, what a mess. Yeah, that's only like half a strand. Darn thing shredded on me. Yeah, I can see that. It's just, ugh. Oh, what a nightmare. Is there anything salvageable? Yeah, a little bit. Oh. Well, guess I'm glad I discovered it now. Yeah, I got into such a groove that I forgot it was a different color. Okay, let's find my seam ripper. I find it's a little easier to cut it than with scissors with the seam ripper. So, okay, yeah. Yeah, I realized that blue was looking too blue and not close to black enough, that it was the wrong one. There we go. That would have looked funky. Yeah, you'd think working with so few colors I would be less likely to mess it up, but you would be wrong. There we are. Yeah, I could see the difference between this color here and this color sort of outlining it, and realized I was using the inner color and not the outer one. So something was wrong. Yeah, I'm not sure why it wouldn't pull out smoothly. Oh well. I never claim to be perfect. That is for certain. That's better. Now it matches the stitches above it, which it was supposed to. Put that there too. So I'm going out of order a bit, but I'm not going to stitch all around this and leave that one empty. I don't like doing that because I find it's harder to get the needle. Yeah. So I try to only close in on 2 sides, sometimes 3, just when things work out like this, but I do not like it closed in on all 4 sides. I find it is much harder to get the needle up there and to get it so you're not piercing the other threads. So stop and park there. Switch to this thread and carry it down. Yeah, I was pretty sure I remembered this being fairly long. Added it not too long ago. There we go. Untangle it so we don't transfer those tangles and make a knot. I'm less sore today, so I might be able to stitch for longer than the last few sessions had to be a bit shorter because of that. All right, that's the cutoff point right there. Row 200. Actually, I'll do the one that's right in the corner there. think I will wrap up soon. Oops, there we go. Yeah, so I'm kind of sloping my diagonal the other way now because the colors are going that way. Oops. Yeah, that is definitely did not go back down in the right spot. It's got to go back down right where it came up, or the loop will not, pardon me, go to the back properly. Okay, actually my hip is now starting to complain at me from sitting down too long, so I think this is where I'm gonna call it a day. But yeah, we're past 250 stitches, so I am pretty happy with that day's work. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me today, and hope to see you here next time. Thanks everybody. Bye.